All right. Dire Straits, Money for Nothing, uh, which takes me back to the 80s. I don't know if anybody else, and the origins of MTV. I remember when that was one of the very early MTV hits. And I put it on today because we're going to be talking about work via The Office. My friend Steve Algren, photographer and former faculty member of LaGuardia Community College, he's on today to talk about his life, his photography, and his new book, The Office, which is work that he began 30 years ago when he was a graduate student at the Yale School of Art. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks, Hugo. It's a treat to see you again.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
yeah. We saw each other at when we went to go see Benson's show, the Philadelphia.
Yeah,
That was
that's
the
true.
first time in I don't know how many years, decade.
Yeah, 20 years, I think, really.
Right.
Yep.
And
Yep. You
uh,
haven't changed that much.
ditto. Just a little white hair. I've gained a lot of weight, but
Uh-huh.
that's about it.
Two old guys with beards and paunches. That's it.
Yeah, my wife always
Whatever.
talks about if she'd seen what I was going to look like when she met me, now she would have had second thoughts.
Maybe they have an app for that. That we kind of need to
It's called Bad
check your
Eyes.
boyfriend or girlfriend out. Yeah.
But anyhow, we talked a little bit about the format. So why don't we start by you talking a little bit about your background and your studies before you ever came to LaGuardia?
Sure. Well, I grew up in Minnesota, in northern Minnesota, Duluth, which is a town on Lake Superior. It's kind of a very pretty place. A lot of industry there, shipping, and grew up there. Well, I think that I kind of got interested in photography, and like a lot of kids, I was doing other things, skateboarding or uh, model rockets, skiing, a lot of skiing. And but one day at an art center, they had a poster up for like learn photography, and they had dark rooms there, and uh, and I just had seen pictures like on movies and stuff of people in dark rooms, doing photography, and it was like this mystical, magical thing. I really try. I had no idea I'd really like. It was just that was part of the appeal of it, just the dark room. Almost more than taking pictures. I wanted to see how the dark room worked, and which makes me think I don't know how people today will get into photography. They won't have any of that usually. They just see the computers and the digital stuff, but it was the dark room that drew me in, and I took this class with this guy Bruce Ojard. I still remember his name, and I really remember liking it a lot. And I just had like a little teeny Kodak Instamatic camera, real primitive, simple camera, and started going in there all the time and making new pictures, and then I kind of kept at it, and I got more interested in photography, and I worked in a high school newspaper, and I thought at the time, because I was really interested in current events and news and everything, like maybe I'll be a photojournalist. And that was my thought, that after high school, I was going to go to college and be a photojournalist, and just I'd see the photographers with their long lenses, and it was so kind of cool, and following the presidential candidates and all that stuff, the big packs of people with their cameras. It was just so intriguing and so appealing. So I thought that's what I'm going to do. So I declared myself a journalism major my first year in college, which was at the University of Minnesota. And I thought I was all set, but then I was halfway through my first year, and I had like a panic attack or something. And I didn't know what was going on, but I thought, I don't know if I want to be a photographer anymore, because I kept hearing all these stories that it's like acting, oh, you're never gonna make a living at it. It's just a lost cause, go find something else, and it's so difficult, and I kind of got spooked by that, and I thought, geez, I like it, doing it a lot, but I don't know if I'm that good. So I said, I'll just I'll try something else. So I ended up declaring undecided major. Then I got into like economics. I had some economics classes, and those were kind of cool. And that kind of just led me eventually to a business degree at again at the University of Minnesota. And that's what I did in my college years. I finished college as a business major. So, and then After that, got a job working for a bank in Florida. Here,
My
mentioned
hometown.
that. So you're from, yeah. I was in Orlando, but my whole family had moved to Florida when I was in college. And I thought, this is kind of cool. The palm trees and the ocean is certainly different than Minnesota. I thought, oh, I'll go be a banker in Florida. And I moved down there. And for the first year or two, it was okay. I mean, I wasn't really that into it, but Florida itself was new and exciting. So that kind of carried me through. But the job itself as a banker, I realized, my passion isn't here that much for that. And uh, and then I had kind of the stupid idea that, well, maybe it's not the job that I don't like. Maybe it's Florida, because I got a little tired of Florida. The first year was great. You're by the pool, and it's Thanksgiving, and everybody in Minnesota is like, oh, shivering, and you're like by the pool. The second year that rolls around, you're still by the pool, and nothing has changed.
Yeah.
I realized the change of seasons means a lot to me.
Hmm.
And so anyway, so I thought, well, maybe the problem's Florida. It's not banking. So I moved back to Minnesota, got a job in Minneapolis at a bank there, and uh, and found out that no, the problem was banking. I really didn't. I really didn't
Right.
want to be a banker. It took me 5 years to figure that out. I was doing banking for 5 years, and during that end of that time, during maybe the third year, fourth year, fifth year, I had gotten back into photography. Got taking pictures again, and more interested in it. And uh, and then I just decided one day it's like another crisis, like I had in my first year of college, when I said I can't do this anymore. Same thing happened to bank. I got to quit. I don't have any plans. I don't know what I'm going to do. I moved back home with my parents. Uh, Same week that my dad got laid off from his job. So that was a bad time. But I reached the point when I couldn't do it anymore. So I quit without any idea of what I was really going to do, and then just said, well, I'm going to do photography. And then that eventually led to flying to graduate school, where I met you, and that's kind of where it all started, I guess.
But okay, so you're you give up your job, you go back to doing photography, and then why did you decide to get the MFA at Yale? Do you remember that?
Yeah, well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I thought eventually after I quit and was taking pictures, I thought, I'm going to apply to graduate school, but I didn't really know where to go. And in the time that I was doing my own work, I had gotten a job as a teaching assistant at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design, mainly just to get the access to the dark rooms, because you had to have a place to make pictures. So I volunteered as a teaching assistant for these classes there to get access to the darkroom. And one of the persons there who was a teacher was a guy named Tom Arndt, who's a local photographer, well regarded. Uh, and I always liked his work. And so anyway, one day I said, I'm thinking of going to graduate school. I should apply, because I thought, well, I'll apply to Mass Art in Boston. And now I'll apply to University of Chicago, Illinois, Chicago. And he said, why don't you apply to Yale? And at the time, I had no clue that you could study photography at Yale. I really had no clue. And I certainly knew the name of the school, but he was the one. This guy Tom Arndt said, "Why don't you apply to Yale?" And and I started. Well, I have to learn a little bit about it to see if it's worthwhile. And this was before the internet, and you couldn't just type in search engine and get all the information you'd ever want. So I struggled and just found some stuff at the library. And I found there's this guy, Todd Papageorge, who runs the program, and he seemed to like Robert Frank and Walker Evans a lot. So that was like, okay, I like Robert Frank and Walker Evans. That's good. And I saw some of his pictures, and I can relate to him, to the kind of stuff I like. Black and white photographs made, in the street. And there's the other teacher was Richard Benson, which I could not figure at all what Richard Benson was about. I didn't understand. He was a printer, but I didn't understand how that related to photography. He printed books, and this, what has that got to do with taking pictures? And but I ended up applying there, mainly because the reputation of the school I could see was good, and the people were doing kind of work that I liked. But I really hadn't given it a lot of thought. It wasn't like I quit banking, so I'm going to go to this program. Uh, and now that I think about it, I think when I realized how much I got out of it, and and how special it was to spend some time with those two people, while they were there. I think I would have been a lot more tense for my interview than I was, just because yeah, this is an amazing chance, but I didn't really realize it at the time. I was just, okay, well, it seems like a nice opportunity. So, but it was just, yeah, just a happenstance. If I didn't know Tom Arndt, I hadn't asked him that, I wouldn't have gone to Yale. And the same token, my life is different because that's where I met my wife. Not that she was a student, but she was the sister of a student there. And and then my wife and I got married. We had kids. So my whole life is just so different because of one person's kind of off the cuff recommendation. It's funny, life that way. How so much depends on these things. But that was Yale. Yeah, just a off the cuff recommendation.
And we met there, and that's where and we're going to talk about it. That's where the this project did it start at Yale, the office project?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because when I started as a student, I was just kind of continuing things I'd already done. I used to go to demonstrations and walk the streets and fairs and events. I was really into the kind of people photography, Robert Frank, Gary Winogrand, uh, that kind of stuff. And so I just kind of continued the way I'd worked before. And I think it came up at a crit where you have a meeting with the students and faculty and talk about your work. And I think it might have been Todd who said something like, "Well, what do you really know about this stuff? Where's your personal view of it?" And I don't know. I just like the pictures that other people had made, and this seemed kind of like along those lines. But it's true. I didn't really have a deep personal connection to it. The one thing I did have a personal connection to was, what I'd spent a lot of time prior to graduate school doing, which was working in an office. And that was never a thought to take pictures in an office. That was like the furthest thing from my mind. I mean, it's just boring. It's just there's nothing there visually. There's nothing to hang on to, and it was just so pedestrian and so every day. That's why I went out and made pictures of in the streets and other places. But around the same time, he mentioned that try to find something personal in your work. There was an ad in the darkroom at Yale, and it was the New Haven Chamber of Commerce, and they wanted a photographer to come in and take pictures of their networking events, where the business people get together at a, office or a, place and then network and drink and exchange business cards and all that. And they needed someone to take pictures of the events. And it also paid a little bit of money, which was nice because that's always helpful in graduate school. So I thought, well, I'll do this, and then maybe I can make some pictures out of this thing for my crit, because that's the other thing in graduate school. You always got to have work ready to go, and that's one of the challenges of it. And I thought, well, this is a way I can do some work, and maybe something will come out of it. So it was from that ad, and I called him up and said, yeah, I'll do it. So I started photographing these events. People gathered after work at cocktail parties, and I never really made any good pictures of it that I liked. They're okay. There's some that were interesting, but I never really made anything that I loved. I did have this one period where I thought I had to be more artistic and creative, more conceptual. So what I thought I would do for one crit is I went and found all these how to succeed in business books to the library, and I found all these passages in books about these are things you have to do to politically succeed in an office. You got to know who your friends are, know who your enemies are, and keep an eye out for your back. And so I'd find these little sections of text in these books, and I'd photograph them, and then I'd kind of merge them onto the picture in a way. So it'd be like the picture with the text alongside somewhere. And it was kind of stupid, really. It got me through a crit. So, but I realized it's just partly it was kind of caustic and kind of made fun of people and stuff. I didn't want to do that. And also, I don't know. I've never been a real conceptual person. I just like to look at a picture and not have to think about words when I'm looking at the picture. So I just ditched that. And then at the same time, I went to color photography, which I'd never done before. I'd always done black and white since I started. And Yale had a color processor. And I thought, well, it's a good chance for me to try something new. Other people were doing color. I thought I should give it a try. So then I started photographing the network meetings in color, and still didn't get anything that great. But I kind of made that shift. And then I decided, I really got to go into the office and just see what happens. It was just kind of like what I was doing was okay, but it really wasn't that great. So I thought I got to take another direction and just see where this next step would go. So I just started asking people at these networking sessions, hey, it's nice and when you're a student because people understand that. I'm working on a project. Can you let me, come and photograph you, do a portrait of you at work? And a fair number of people would say no, but a lot of people said, yeah, sure. So then I started in the office, just going in with my camera, which at the time was a 35 millimeter camera, kind of relatively small camera, and setting the camera on a tripod and just trying to make pictures of people in the office. That's how it kind of worked its way. So it kind of had a little path that led there.
Right.
And I think that's a good lesson. I've talked to people before when I was a teacher. You have an idea of what you're going to do, and then you go out and you start doing it, and it leads you down a path you never expected. So you have to be open to that, and this was a good case in that. Just kind of wandering around and finding this is what I really wanted to do. So it was helpful that way. Good lesson for myself to try to remember.
Yeah, I remember at the time, uh, everybody was crazy about it. I mean, people liked the work, even though initially you would say, well, what does he do? Well, he photographs people in offices. He like photographs, but
Wow.
the pictures, the pictures were great. I remember from your
Well,
final
part,
exhibition.
part of the inspiration, this is actually in the book too. I mean, part of the inspiration for going back into the office was when I was in Minneapolis. I used to go to the Walker Arts Center to see photography shows there, but other just to wander around the collections. And there was a painting by Edward Hopper, great painter in
Yeah, I think
1920s,
it's right here
1940s,
in the
30s.
beginning of the book, right? This picture.
Yeah, that's the
People can.
one. That picture is at the Walker Arts Center. I used to go to that all the time. And what kind of first drew me in was like, okay, what's the picture of? It's like somebody sitting at a desk in their office at night, and there's the only other person in the picture is a woman, and uh, it just had a tension to it. And I just thought I never really thought that was the first time I thought, maybe you could make an interesting picture in an office. That was like one of the few kind of totem poles I had that said maybe it could be done. And that's kind of what also led me to think, I'm going to put these parties aside. I'm going to go into the office and see if I can make a picture kind of like Edward Hopper's that I love so much. Just this kind of a vague narrative, a little bit of tension, ambiguity. And so that was a big thing too, is that picture. Yeah.
So, and you kept making that work after you left, because I remember that you had a set of lights and you would go around. I'd borrow them every once in a while. You,
Oh,
yeah, and
uh,
you kept doing that work afterwards when you left school, right?
I did, but I should be clear though. When I did all these pictures, I never used any lights or anything. All I used was just a camera and the tripod because partly I didn't know anything about lighting. I didn't really know how to do it that well. But also, it just made things a lot easier, just and simpler. Because usually when you're going into somebody's office to get access is, that's half the challenge. It's like I feel like it's like 2/3 of the challenge of the picture is getting access. And if you said, I want to take a picture of you, and you're going to bring in all this equipment and an assistant, maybe
Right.
or lights, it
Yeah.
was just so much more disruptive. And I was able to tell people, no, it's going to be you're just going to do whatever you have to do. You don't have to do anything for me. I'm just going to have my camera and the tripod and just watch you. And and that's it. And that's, yeah, they agreed. But I never used any lights for it. I really wanted to keep it just basically as minimal as possible.
Right.
And, uh, and part of that too was when I remember working as a banker. I remember working in the office late at night and stuff, and some of the lights in the corridors it was almost like a theatrical enough in itself. It didn't need any help, and so yeah, it was a very simple setup. And I did keep it going after grad school. I started at my second year. Grad school is a 2-year program. I started at my second year doing these office pictures and kept it going. I got people were kind and nice, and that was uh, reaffirming. And then after I got out of grad school, I was there was a show at the International Center of Photography that somebody had curated that pulled some of the pictures into that show, which was nice, and they got mentioned in the New York Times, which was a good feeling. So I felt I was on my way. And then I just decided to keep going with it, and I kept it going for about 10 years, off and on, with other things as well, you know. But
Right. So you should probably mention. So when you got out of graduate school, you started teaching here at LaGuardia, and
yeah, yeah, that's right.
that was also the product of grad school, right? Because Bruce had wanted to hire Evan Sklar, our colleague Bruce Brooks, who used to run the program, wanted to hire Evan, and Evan said, "Well, I can't work for you, but I've got this friend."
It's funny. I was trying to remember. I was trying to think before we did this how I met Bruce, because I wasn't sure. That I think you're probably right, because I thought it was somebody else, another student who had mentioned it. But I had intended to go to graduate school to teach. I guess that was kind of the goal, at least as a practical goal. You know, what am I going to use this degree for? Well, I could teach. So it was Evan, or probably was Evan, who mentioned the job at LaGuardia. So I went and replied and met Bruce Brooks,
Was
who
no,
I'm not sure if
no, because
he's.
first he started working for Sean Galvin in college. I mean,
Oh
Liberty
yeah, that's true.
Partnership. Is that? Yeah.
That's it. I forgot all about that. Yeah,
And
lucky
then
enough, you know.
Bruce met you and you hired
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
and
I
then you
remember the.
wanted.
I remember the first time meeting with Bruce. He was so like intimidating to me. It
Yeah,
was
he can be
just,
scary. He's a
oh
scary guy.
man, I
He
just
wants to
remember
be.
like I've always aspired to that. I never could never pull it off, but he was just like he was like this guy who I could imagine being out in Alaska, you know, killing a bear, and then going back to his going back to his log cabin and painting it or writing a poem about it or something. You know, just really a
Yes,
physical presence. You
warrior
know.
poet.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, I managed to convince him that I could do it. So, but yeah, so I started teaching there. I guess it was late '92 or early '93, and I think I did it for maybe 3 years. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I
I
just
think
remember that
I can't remember exactly.
you gave me the Liberty Partnership gig, and
Right.
you were teaching all kinds of things, and then you went to work. Were you already working for Sigma, the picture agency?
Yeah. Well, when I first got out of college, because I wasn't teaching, I didn't have the job at LaGuardia. What I first did was I was just working for a stock photo agency, which is like a library of pictures, and you would sell the pictures to magazines or advertising people to, you know, to reuse the pictures, and then you negotiate the sale. And I started at a very boring stock photo agency called the Stock Market, and the pictures are just sunsets and couples holding hands, and it was just terrible, just awful, boring pictures. But then I found a job at Sigma, which I don't think it exists anymore. It's a news agency, and they cover news events, you know, all over the world. And I was editing the pictures there and trying to sell them to the news magazines. So I wasn't taking pictures for myself, but at least I was looking at pictures I was really interested in, because I still, I thought about photojournalism for a while, and this was a way to kind of be involved in that. So, so I was doing that. That was the way I made most of my money. And then the Guardia teaching was kind of on the side or in addition to it. And I remember teaching, oh gosh, I think beginning photography, intermediate photography, color photography, and I think those three. Which made me actually have a question for you. Did LaGuardia at the time have a color darkroom, or I can't remember from my assignments if people just shot to slide film, or
No,
I
what
don't know if they have a
at the
color
time?
printer.
Yeah, at the time that you were working there, and I was working there with you, we were in the what we used to call the L building, which is a building that now it's located next to Van Dam Diner, and now it's a middle high school or something like that. They moved us all out of there, and we had actually three labs. So we had the big gang dark room for the beginning, and then across the hall there was an intermediate advanced dark room for black and white,
That's right.
and then there was a color lab with a color processor. We still have that. I think we still have that processor, though it hasn't been working for a while. And we just got some funding that we may be able to utilize to get it fixed, because it's even hard to find people to repair those things. But I should do, by the way, it's 1:29. I should do a quick station ID. So the show is What's Going On. My name is Hugo Fernandez. I'm here on LaGuardia Web Radio, WLGR. And my guest today is a former classmate of mine and colleague, Steve Algren. Uh, who taught here at LaGuardia Community College many years ago. And we're talking about his life, his photography, and his new book, The Office, work that began 30 years ago when he was a graduate student at the Yale School of Art. And by the way, I should my station manager. We started the show with Dire Straits, and there's some derogatory language in that, and just to
Yeah.
understand that part of it is about the voice of the author, which happens to be blue collar guy who has at the time didn't have it was a different time, and but some of those people still exist. But anyhow, so we don't necessarily agree with with some of the language, but we
Well,
know it's about poetic license as well.
I
What?
think Mark Knopfler has regretted those words because he never performs it that way in concert anymore.
Yeah, that's what
He
Jamie was saying. Is
rephrases the words.
if we
So
had
yeah.
gotten a cleaner cut, I mean, and I think what he was referring the band he's referring to. I think that was like who was that? Simon Le Bon and forgot the name of those guys. Not Wham, but the other one, Duran or
Oh,
somebody.
oh sure. Yeah.
They were a phenomenon at the time. Anyhow, so let's get back to. So we've got some pictures to look at from the book, and my engineer, Christopher Pope, is waiting. So what he's gonna do is he's gonna make them available on the screen, and then he'll share in the chat with us the pictures so we can talk about some. So let's look at some of these pictures we've been talking about. Chris, you want to start with our first picture? Maybe not. Oh, here we go. You're not going to put it in the chat as well? Oh, here it is. Yes, it is. So
Sure.
this one's a big one, right? Because
That that was an important picture for me because that was like that. This is as far back as it goes. That was taken at Yale during the second year, and I had been struggling making these pictures in the office. I hadn't really gotten anything that I liked that much, but I knew I was intrigued by it. And the other thing I had done was I went home that year, halfway through at the end of my first year, I went home and I tried a different camera. I tried a bigger camera, a bigger negative, and I had been using 35 millimeter, which is a small kind of camera. It's like a digital camera, but with not really good resolution. I guess the way you'd compare it to digital. And I switched to a bigger camera that a friend of mine loaned me. And the bigger camera is like a digital camera with more resolution. It's more detail. There's more sharpness. The colors look more intense. The way it renders light is a little bit more evocative and clear. This was one of the first pictures I made with that bigger camera, and I remember when I put this and a bunch of other pictures up. That was kind of like my first, I guess, my big triumph with this project, realizing that oh, this really could be something interesting. So that was one of the first ones that
and you
in
ended
that
up
group I put up.
yeah, you sold the rights to this to Microsoft for a few years, right? That kind of kept you
Well,
alive financially.
yeah, I didn't sell the rights, but actually, I don't think it was this picture. It was another one. But the Microsoft did license a bunch of pictures from this series, and then we used that as our down payment for our house. Actually, where we are now. So that was
Nice.
helpful. But that was made in New Haven, and that was a bank in New Haven, and it was one of those rare times when usually when I get permission, I would get permission to photograph one person at their desk. And this was one of the rare times where they said, for whatever reason, you can just wander around wherever you want. We don't mind. And they weren't paranoid or anything. So I would just wander the hallways and wander the offices. And I went into this one little area and the guy was making copies. And I knew right away, I just loved the light in that, the way it reminded me of a Hopper painting almost, because Hopper has lots of diagonals of light in his paintings and that little stream of light coming down to his legs from behind. I just love that. And then he kind of paused and looked down. And it just really hit me like all of a sudden, like that's what I looked like when I was a banker. That's exactly what I would have looked like. I was sitting at the copy machine thinking, what am I doing with my life? How long am I going to be doing this? At least to me, that's what the picture felt like. And I've never made a self-portrait, but that's like as close to a self-portrait as I've ever made, that picture. And but of course, as you know, the guy might have loved his work, and
Well,
he
yeah,
may be
we're
the CEO of the bank. It doesn't
right,
matter, but
exactly.
it's
We're
what the
throwing
picture
that
looks
all
like.
on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the picture is what the picture looks like, and that's the most
Yeah,
important thing. And whatever story you want to add to it, and that's the story that I would add to that picture. That just felt so resonant because of my own background and
yeah,
past, and
exactly. Your stuff.
so
Chris, let's see
yeah,
another one because we got about 15 of these, and we're gonna have to try to move through them somehow. All
yeah.
right.
That was also in New
Wait a
Haven.
minute. Okay, yeah. So
That was at
just
the events Coliseum, New Haven Coliseum. Do they have that still? Where they'd have concerts and events. And there was this guy.
oops. Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
just working at his desk with behind him. If you can see the pictures, there's like a wrestling match and ZZ Top.
right.
Uh,
And
and there's got
Shatner in
the
the front, right?
Star Trek guy. Yeah, so you've got these three kind of pretty wild guys on display, and then you've got him at his desk quietly doing his work. And then on the right side of the picture, I always like the calendars. I think he's got like 2 or 3 years worth of calendars hanging there, so you can see all the days of his, just the stretch of time, in the office, just each day marked off, with all these, almost like with these other kind of ideas of what you can do, just the wrestler and the ZZ Top, the wild people. So,
Right.
and
Okay.
again, the light in that's nice too, with the shadows kind of coming down. That's me with the regular light. It's just,
Okay, Chris, give us another one. Sorry if I'm moving quickly, but it's
no, yeah, that was in an insurance company in Hartford. And that was another one I just could wander the halls and the hallway. They had the water cooler, and then next to it was a tote board with all these names and the sales figures. And when I was in banking, I was never a particularly good banker, and I used to always remember, meeting with my boss, and well, your numbers could be better, and your peers are all kind of really marching ahead of you, and I know, and so whenever I saw something like that, it really stuck me with that way too. It's like, here's everybody's name, here's how they're doing on display for everybody to see, and they're all ranked, and everybody has got their performance up for
right.
view, and then the corridor with the offices where the work's being done.
Yeah, but also the water cooler where we think of like people go to like loaf,
Socializing.
and like
Yeah,
so. But then you realize like I'm gonna get back to work. I'm behind.
yeah. And in the picture, there's a big stain in the carpet too, which you can't
Yeah,
really see
right.
it. Yeah.
In the front, yeah,
Who
like the
knows?
water.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the brown stain.
or made it because it refrigerated, so maybe there was like leaks.
Yeah.
Oh, Chris is already. He's like pre guessing us now. He's oh, for a second he threw up something. No, Chris, you can go ahead and show us the next picture. It's the one of the suit hanging on
Oh,
the
yeah.
hanger.
That was also in Connecticut. That was at a company that sold security systems. And I have a couple pictures. There might be another picture from the same guy's office in the same series, so you can see him as well. But it was just seeing the suit hanging there on the wall, and if you look at the picture closely, you can see that the suit is almost falling off the hanger because it's broken, and it's like just hanging there by a thread. And then on the clippings, which I'm happy in the book you can actually read the clippings. The headline in one is that 42 people face job loss at Security Link, which the idea of it's kind of a 42 face job loss at Security Link. Seems
This
kind of a
pic,
weird play on words, but
yeah, this kind of reminds me of that episode on Seinfeld, the maestro, who always used to be backstage with his pants off until he had to perform, so he'd keep the crease. So
yeah,
you don't sit in your jacket.
yep,
Okay. And interesting again, the security link. You've got the briefcase that's unlocked.
unlocked, yeah. And then I think another one of the clippings says like man charged for peeking under, looking under toilets in a restroom or something. And
Oh my
there's
god.
another clipping on how to please your boss who's difficult. And so there was all this stuff that kind of related to the difficulties of office life. And then having all these together with the suit that's almost falling off the wall, just kind of seemed,
Right.
appropriate.
All right. How about another one, Chris?
That was in Minneapolis. And that was at a government office. I think I'm not sure what department. But that was around, that was also one of the earliest pictures I did. That was with one of the cameras that I borrowed from my friend. It was a Plowbell Makina, which is kind of a medium format camera.
Yeah, I remember. I
And
think Richard
those
used
were
to lend
nice.
one as well. He had one that was always breaking.
Yeah, yeah, they were temperamental, but they had real nice lenses. And
Yeah.
this was one of the ones again when I first switched over to the bigger negative, and if I had taken the same picture with the smaller camera before that I was using, it wouldn't have worked quite as well because you wouldn't see the detail of the cubicles and the calendars on the wall. You wouldn't be able to read things, and the light wouldn't have been as attractively described. But I was just drawing this case to the almost to the people in their cubes, but also the ornamentation around the holidays. Each
Right.
cubicle with its own placement of the picture in the same spot. And in the background, there's these little teeny little red stockings that are stuck on every other
Yeah,
file
I can see
cabinet,
that. Yeah.
and then you've got the three pillars with the top. So it was just kind of a, it kind of felt, uh,
Yeah. What can you do in a space
yeah,
like that?
to brighten it up.
Yeah. Okay, Chris. How about another one?
That was in an accounting office in New Haven. All these are early pictures, which is great. Um, he was just at his desk, and I was roaming around the desk. I would, whenever I went into an office, I'd have my camera in the tripod, and I'd position it in front of the desk. I'd go to the side of the desk, and I'd kind of just literally circle around to try to figure out a spot that seemed interesting. And I'd tried from the side, kind of looking at a profile from the side of his desk, and those were okay. But then I moved to the front of the desk, and he was going through these ledgers, and all of a sudden, this blue card that he was on that ledger on the left just flipped up, and I just loved that. Just the little spot of blue color and the squareness of the shape, and the squareness of the walls, and it just seemed like so. And then just the three ledger books together like that, just it's a very simple picture. I just love for its graphicness.
Right.
And it's also interesting when you look at it now. There's no computer. Where's this computer?
Yeah. I mean, but
It's
we're gonna
fascinating.
start seeing computers, but
Yeah,
not yet. Right.
that's the
Okay,
one marker.
Chris. Oh yeah. The marker. What before and after
Oh,
computers?
just technology was the only way you can sometimes date these a little bit.
A little
So
bit.
this was in Duluth, a town where I grew up. I was
Right.
visiting my parents, and I just called around and asked different banks in Duluth if I could come and visit. And this was maybe 2 or 3 years after graduate school. I'd gotten out, and another great occasion where they just let me go wherever I want. And this was in a conference room, and they were having some sort of a department or meeting. And we talked about the Edward Hopper picture earlier, and the idea that I loved the tension of the picture because you didn't really know what was happening, but you had some sort of a tension. That's what I kind of got from this. If you can see it on the screen, each individual's face is very evocative, uh, and the different
Well,
reactions just kind
I
of
mean,
seems.
yeah. What I picked up from this picture now that I didn't so much because I'd seen it before is now, especially with the gender politics. So here's these two women in the boardroom, but they're behind them are all of these
Men.
patriarchs. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
going back in time, men through time,
Yeah,
and the guy, they're just literally surrounded, and that was actually part of the making of the picture as well. Because at the time, I had been dating my wife to be and she worked in a law firm, and I would constantly hear stories of just what it's like to be a woman in a law firm, and I could really empathize with that. And when I saw this scene, I just kind of thought, oh, this she'll get this one. My wife will get
yeah.
this one.
Here it is. Exactly. Here it is.
So, but yeah, that was the other part of it too. Is just the lineup of the pictures, and so yeah, just it's like the cast different inspirations come to it. Some from the Edward Hopper, some from my own life. Pictures come from all different sources.
Right,
It's gotta.
Chris. Another one. We're gonna see if we. I don't think we're gonna make it. I don't like our chances,
No, no problem.
but we'll see as many as we
Yeah,
can.
another tense. That was in New York City. Office supply company. I just love again that the kind of the tension between the two, and then behind them on the board, it's almost like a word balloon in a comic strip. All of the stuff they deal with, which is very obtuse, and
Yeah, I can't, yeah. I was
uh,
gonna say I can't figure out anything. IDB seems to be the prominent in
yeah,
percentages, and
the other one is process Seligman dealer. So I don't know what that means, but it's
it's
almost
like
like a word balloon in a comic strip. Like you better
right.
process Seligman dealer, and he's leaning in saying, I'm gonna do it right.
Reminds me of in Glenn Ross when he likes ABC writes on the board. He
Yeah,
starts, always be closing.
that's
All
right.
right, Chris, another one.
That was in the World Trade Center.
Oh my gosh.
Reinsurance company. Yeah. So just a guy
Is that the
working in
is
an
that the
insurance
only
company.
is that the only time you were there?
Yeah, that was the North Tower. North Tower, maybe about 30 floors up on the
I was
World
going to
Trade
say
Center. I wonder if
what
I didn't know
floor?
if they were still there at the time, but the picture itself was made in about 1995. So it was maybe 6 years before
And so this is
September
something
11th.
yeah, this is something about the work which I see in the work is I mean my office is a mess right now too, but how, like at some point like the aesthetics of things just like, open box full of I don't know how long this guy had been in this office, but this didn't the aesthetics didn't matter.
No. There were high-end offices, and there were some that were just like that. So it was great.
That computer is huge too.
That's what kind of first drew me to it. It just seems like he's so dwarfed by it.
He is. Uh, Another one, Chris. I love seeing this stuff again. I also love. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I
What
was
was I
gonna
gonna?
say that's the same guy that the coat hanging on the wall with the security
Right.
link. That's his desk. So I just panned the camera a little bit to the left. That's who was there, and he was meeting with his secretary. And it was just kind of again, like another Hopper moment between the man and the woman. And you can see it in the picture. His leg is jiggling and his pencil is jiggling, and he feels a little tense. And
Well, I think I remember you talking about that Hopper picture, and part of it was about. So here's a man and a woman late night in
mm-hmm,
an office, and so the sexual tension in
mm-hmm.
Hopper's work. People talk about that.
Yeah,
Uh, there's a lot of it, especially since his wife was usually his model.
his model. That's right.
So here, but that's good. Another one, Chris.
Another bank in New Haven. It's some kind of just a graphic, real simple, just about as simple as you can make it. Just
Was
contorted into his desk. No computer, no, just paper and a brown bag lunch. That's it.
but
So
what I love is like there's nothing on the walls. Like I guess those are like
no,
pinnable walls or something, but he put like nothing up there.
the only thing you can read in the picture is text. Is that green thing in the foreground? It says analysis pad. So it's his
Right.
analysis pad. But I just was struck by his posture and just his hair.
Right.
It was nice against the color of the wall. And
Yeah. Chris, another one.
that was another kind of, it relates in a way to the one we saw previously with the guy and
Right.
the woman. And it's just kind of a tension between them. There's something
Right.
about his face when I look at it that just makes me a little uneasy, which is nothing against him. I mean, he could have been the nicest guy in the world, but again, a picture is
Right.
what a picture is about. So,
Right. Exactly.
you know.
What's in it? Another one, Chris.
And that was actually my father-in-law's office here where I am now in Media, Pennsylvania. He was a lawyer. He was a lawyer. Now he's retired, but that was in his office a few blocks away from where I am. And that was one that actually Microsoft first bought and gave
You're kidding, really?
gave her, just kind of bizarre. I'd never really imagined, advertising photography or anything because I knew the money was so much better than magazine or teaching all that stuff. And I remember I was working at Sigma, and one day this guy from an ad agency in Oregon called and said, "Oh, Microsoft wants to use this one, so there's another 13,000 for you." So it's just that happened like 5 times, which was just I don't know, couldn't believe it.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Well,
and I didn't have to do anything. So that was
for
another
me,
one.
about this really talks about like the whatever the emptiness of the lifestyle and I mean, these walls with like have nothing on them. I mean, it's
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah. That's kind of it reminds me like a Kubrick kind of thing or something. I don't know.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can make
So
that turn as well.
yeah.
Chris, another one. All right.
Another one from Duluth that was just in a power and light company. They just let me wander around. I'm not sure what I can say about that one. I just always like her gesture and the screen with the grid and the numbers that are being scored on the back of it. And
Yeah,
so
and yeah,
there's not a lot of women as much as I would like in the pictures, and not as
yeah,
much ethnic diversity either, which I think things have changed. But part of it was just, where I was and what I saw, and that's what was there. So
yeah. And that expression on her face,
yeah,
a little reminiscent, a little bit of Crutzen, how he catches people sometimes
yeah,
looking
yeah.
off. Greg Crutzen. One more. I think there's one more, right, Chris? There's one last one
Last one.
because I'm counting the pictures on the bottom. I think this is our 15th
Yeah,
picture.
that's actually a picture that I had not seen when I first shot it, and I went back when I was doing the book, gathering pictures for the book. I came across this one, and I really came to like it a lot. It was taken in New York at Con Ed downtown, and just in a meeting. And again, it's just I just love the ambiguity of it. I mean, there's a guy holding up the finger, and you don't know, like, does that mean, like, you know, we've got room in the staff for one person and there's two of you, or that means the
Yeah,
deadline for the project's been moved up and it's a week away and we got to finish it or whatever. So just so
but
you can
like
see clearly
to
that.
get back to that to the diversity issue, this is the only one that has men of
Yeah,
color in it.
yeah, yeah.
And-
And
But
I, and it, yeah, it was that's you know,
and the white man.
and the white guy, yeah, with his finger up. So
I love like the shelves empty.
empty, yeah. Cupboards are bare.
I don't know any. I don't have a single shelf that doesn't have it is like overloaded with books and stuff like that. All right. I think there isn't another one, right, Chris? I think that was 15. I counted from the bottom, so I think that's
Yeah.
all our pictures. Okay, we can go back. Wow, that was a sorry if it felt like we went through quick. We're almost out of time. We got about 4 minutes to talk about the future and anybody
Yeah.
you want to thank. I mean, one of the part of the story is that you had this work, and then you were approached to make the book, right?
Yeah, I got an email last summer, just one day in the morning, and I got an email from somebody in England, and said, "Oh, we saw your pictures," and I have no idea how they saw them. I have a website and pictures on the internet, but I'm not exactly the most well known of photographers. So, but they had somehow seen them and said they'd like to do a book on them, and that's how it came about. And I had always thought in my mind that someday I'll go out and face rejection and bring all the pictures around. And but I never got around to it, partly because I was doing a lot of other stuff with raising my daughters and all that stuff. And but I thought eventually I'll get around to it. And before I could really make an effort, this this offer came up. So it just fell into my lap, which I was grateful for very much.
But
So
it's also, you were prepared because you had all this great work
yeah, I was
and
just sitting.
kept
Although
it.
it's funny because the prints that I made at the time were all made in a dark room, and they're really horrible compared to the prints you can make on a computer now, because a lot of this work is
Right.
funky colors. You get a sense of that with the woman and the
Yeah.
screen with the colors could be real weird, and the computer lets you fix all that. So I've done some prints of them, but a lot of them just live on a hard drive. So that's what I'm going through now, is finally making prints again. I was talking about
Yeah.
that with you the other day. Like I really just feel like unless I make some physical objects, the pictures don't exist in a way other than saying they're on this hard drive, which or the internet, which I don't know. There's something unsatisfying about not having a real physical print to look at. So I've been
Yeah.
doing that now, is actually making prints of some of these, as well as other stuff.
I mean, I'm happy with looking at them on the screen, but again, when I have exhibitions, that's when they get made into prints, and then
Yeah.
it's nice to frame things up and give it, in a sense, get it into the hands of others because, otherwise it's all on yours unless you have a hard drive or a cloud, if anything happens to your house, everything goes with it.
Yeah.
But we're just about out of time. So, any last things you want to share or anything? We didn't
Oh,
get a chance to talk about your crazy life as an artist that would have
oh,
been
it's not
a
that
lot of
crazy. It's
fun.
there's no
So maybe you come
craziness to
back
talk
on
about.
next time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm still taking pictures though. I'm actually trying to make pictures now without a project in mind. I'm actually just going out. It's almost like an exercise. I'm going to go out, take my camera, and just photograph. And I've defined like an area, my county where I live in, and I'm just making pictures of Delaware County, just with no agenda or idea in mind. It's almost like a way, like William Eggleston, great photographer, who probably both
right.
admire my work. Just go out and look for interesting pictures, but not have them be about anything. And I
Right.
find that such a great exercise to do. I think maybe just through the act of making something, you can. And who knows? Maybe it'll lead somewhere, and then I'll find out what I want to do. But right now, I'm just really trying to force myself to get out and make pictures. That's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I
Solve
want to thank
artistic
you.
problems they're doing.
Yeah.
Just solve your artistic problems by doing work and then thinking
Well,
about it
that's what
later.
that's what Benson used to say. He would,
Yeah, John Zarkowski too.
Yeah, you figure things out by making it.
and
You know,
react
you
to what you
can't
made. Yep.
exactly. You can't think your way into making. You have to make your way into
Yep.
thinking or something like that. Well, I just want to thank you for being on the show. So today, and say to folks who are watching here, today's show has been with my guest Steve Algren. He's a photographer and a former faculty member of LaGuardia Community College, and we've talked a little bit about his life, his photography, and his new book, which I have here, The Office. Work that began 30 years ago when he was a graduate student at the Yale School of Art. You can get it online and be shipped to you from England. Uh, Reasonable, but it's a beautiful little book. And congratulations. And come on, next time I will try not to play anything offensive. Uh, but if you've been watching and listening, again, the show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez, here on LaGuardia Web Radio, WLGR. And we're going to go out the way we came in with little Mark Knopfler and Dire Straits. So, Mr. Pope, please take us out. Thanks.